being the center of the Venn diagram of somebody who is making stuff that is timely, but then also making stuff that is timeless.
Yeah.
And it's in this day and age kind of important to do both.
So what happens when a small independent filmmaker fires shots at objectively the biggest movie studio in the world, Marvel Disney?
I hear somebody's a big fan of Captain America.
Well, the answer is easy. You get one of the best short films I've seen in a very long time. Written, starring, and directed by the one and only Jim Cummings. If you haven't watched his new short film, Is Now a Good Time, stop this video, get out of here, go watch the short film, and then come back because I just had a really great chat with Jim all about this short film, the state of the industry right now, why he's firing shots at Marvel Disney. I think Jim is one of the best voices in independent cinema right now, and selfishly, I just wanted to learn some more from him, and the positive side effect of my selfishness is that you get to learn something too. So here is my conversation with the one and only Jim Cummings. Well, first off, congrats, dude. Also, nice to actually have like a face-to-face chat with you. Obviously, I've seen you all over the internet. I'm sure you've seen my shitty posts pop every once in a while.
It's hard to miss. No, I've been lucky. It's been neat. It's a weird time, but good to put out the short finally and get people to see the fucking thing.
It's something I've been thinking about a lot. Is just like, I don't know what the word is for it, but the fear to say what you want to say because there might be a repercussion that's maybe against the sort of status quo and the norm out there of like what can be said about, especially big companies, studios, corporations. Even other filmmakers, right? Like, I think about, I'm a huge fan of him, but I think of Chris Stuckman and how he's got that movie come out, and I'm like so proud of him, and it's amazing. And also being a YouTuber too, that like, oh, there's a path here. There's a path for like an online creator to break through the system and make movies. But there was also that video where he said like, I'm not going to really critique movies anymore. I'm not going to say anything about kind of the industry. And that kind of hit me in a weird way. It was like, well, can we even be artists then? Like, are we allowed to say whatever we want? And I kind of felt like in your short, and you actually tweeted out before the short came out, almost like, if you never hear from me again, just know I gave it my all. Right?
It was a suicide note.
Yeah. Suicide note, yeah. And I'd love for you to kind of unpack that feeling. Like, it almost feels like this has been brewing for a while for you, and not to speak for you. And then like, this is a bit of like the snap a little bit of like, I'm just going to say what I want to say. And this is what I'm thinking about right now.
For me, we did a movie called The Beta Test that was a very well-researched movie about talent agencies, and it's a comedy. It's a sexy romp. It's a funny, weird kind of Michael Douglas erotic thriller as a comedy that we put out a few years ago. And it's one of the most successful movies that we've made because people have been dealing with that bullshit of legacy corporate entertainment for a long time, and they're sick of the corporate doublespeak and all of that stuff that we are allergic to as YouTubers and as filmmakers, as indie people. So I don't know, it's funny. Like, that's the other thing. Like, I pitched probably 1,000 movies to my friends, be like, oh, this could be a funny idea for a thing, and then the ones that we're actually laughing at are just like, oh, that feels like us. It feels like a funny thing to do. Why don't we just fucking do that thing? And so like, it's not so much about me trying to take down the system or the status quo or whatever. It's like, it just makes me laugh, and like, it feels subversive and inappropriate. It feels like, what Ruben Östlund or Mark Twain or, any of my favorite comedy people would do right now. And then also, I'm in a special position because like, I'm indie. I'm not working for any of these giant places. The industry is literally falling apart because Chris Stuckman can make something from a Kickstarter campaign with his buddies and go and, sell it to one of the largest distributors in the world right now. So like, that gatekeeping of legacy corporate entertainment is falling apart because of actual social networks and actual entertainment platforms. I think the industry is becoming a lot more like YouTube, where it is the cream rising to the top, and that's very frightening for the industry. Where like, I can make something that's very funny about one of the largest corporations in human history having a bit of a faux pas with a dying child, and people can watch it and share it immediately, and then they have to change their policy. Like, at no point is anybody of these giant corporations going to send out a copy of their movie to a dying person anymore, because immediately the comment is going to be, he's with Iron Man now. And then that's the top comment on every, PR push. And so like, that actively changes the way that these people do. I don't know. But outside of all of the stuff of me wanting to, see a change in the industry and be a change in the industry, it's just funny. And so, like, broadly, people are taking it so seriously. Everybody's loved the movie. Everybody has
Yeah.
reached out, and it's like, one of the best reviewed films that I've ever made, which is insane for a
Yeah.
short sketch. And then some people are very angry, or just like, feel like they're not being listened to, or they feel powerless, and so they want to attack the thing, which is fine. Everybody has their own opinions about stuff. I would never critique how somebody should watch something of ours
No.
if they hate it. That's, very valid. I hate it sometimes. But no, it's a very complicated landscape that we're in right now with film and discourse. And I've been lucky that I've been able to raise money on Seed and Spark and on the internet, and just make my little movies with my little friends. And if people like it, that's great.
That's a good leeway into my next question, because the idea of the self-funding, because I go back and forth a lot, just as me personally speaking. Like, I've built an audience, I've got a fairly large YouTube channel talking about movies, but there's a big part of me that says, if I really want to do this, like if I really want to make the movie, I have scripts, I've got good short films that I want to make, but if I really want to sit down and do it, I often struggle with the feeling that I maybe need to go dark for a bit and focus. You know what I mean? Because there's sometimes, and I don't know if you felt this too, because you're on the online as much as I am. Like, sometimes I feel like the little wins. And you can argue even a short film might be a little win, where you're like, okay, that was good. That was one more sort of notch out there that did well. But is it the big picture? Is it the big thing that I want to do? And I think I struggle sometimes as a filmmaker of losing that big picture, because I can make a video about a movie that's out right now that gets 1 million views, but I'm not fulfilled artistically. I'm not fulfilled in the way of, like, this isn't the movie that I want to be making or the film I want to make. But then the other side of it is, and this is where I love your perspective, is the answer to go dark and you have no audience when you make something? Or maybe it's okay to do these things to build that audience, so as you keep making more stuff, you've built your own distribution network. Like, there's already a baked in audience for yourself. Even when you put something out, people want to see the next Jim Cummings joint. They want to see that thing. And even if we have these moments where, like, we get attacked about a take about a movie or something like that, or something we liked and no one else liked it, whatever it is, who gives a shit, really? I don't know how you feel about that, because a lot of my favorite filmmakers don't have Twitter. They don't have social media and stuff. So I argue with that in my own head. I'm like, am I doing the right thing here? Do people know too much about me to even be a filmmaker now?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. Look at Bo Burnham. There's,
Yeah,
like, you can do anything. You can reinvent yourself. Michael Haneke made his first feature when he was 50, I want to say. Like,
yeah,
Ricky Gervais did The Office when he was 40. Like, I was 29 when I made the Thunder Road short film, and I
yeah,
felt old then. I'm 37 now. And, like,
yeah,
all of that, like, fake timeline stuff can sometimes be corruptive, and comparison is the thief of joy, to quote Oscar Wilde. It's very true. You'll make something great when you're able to. Ricky Gervais's wife, when he was doing The Office, it became the most successful television show in British history. And he said, God damn, imagine if I had made it when I was 30, all the time that I wasted. And she said, it wouldn't have been any good. And
yeah,
it's very true. He had to kind of go through 10 years of corporate hierarchy and power dynamics in an office to finally write something that would be valuable. So don't feel bad. Never feel
yeah,
bad. Look at people like Joe Penna. Joe Penna was Mystery Guitar Man on
yeah, yeah,
YouTube, and then did Arctic and has done great stuff. He's a good friend. I just put out Is Now a Good Time, and he's one of the few people that DMs me to say, oh my God, it's great. Love it.
yeah.
How
He's
have
a
you
great
been?
guy. Yeah,
He's
yeah,
great. He is so lovely. Lovely guy. Um, so yeah, I don't think that disqualifies you from being a true artist. And sometimes those hurdles, especially for young people, come from spotlight syndrome, of, like, imagining that everybody's looking at you, or looking at you a certain way, instead of doing something. It's why we don't take risks. It's like, I talk to a lot of young filmmakers because I chaperone young people to help them to get to where we're at. Most of my job is doing that. And I can't tell you how often I talk to people like my film nephew, Caleb Wilde, and he says, yeah, I want to do this short film, but I don't know what that says about my reputation as a filmmaker if I'm doing this instead of doing the big thing. And I have to remind him, you don't have a reputation as a filmmaker. Like, I don't have a reputation as a filmmaker. You can do fucking whatever you want. Nobody's keeping an eye on you.
yeah.
You're imagining that people are keeping an eye on you. It can be a very seductive daydream that, like, we're all trying to be the next Damien Chazelle or something. and it's okay to have a YouTube channel and a Vimeo channel, or like a YouTube channel and an iTunes presence of you can put out feature films.
Yeah.
I think the real conflict in what you were speaking about earlier is like being the center of the Venn diagram of somebody who is making stuff that is timely, but then also making stuff that is timeless.
Yeah.
And it's in this day and age kind of important to do both. Like we made something about an ongoing conversation on social media about gay characters in legacy corporate entertainment and China's oversight of American entertainment and how corruptive that can be of artwork and
Yeah.
just fucking movies in general, cinema. So we made this thing that's incredibly timely that we knew, people would dig, and it is funny. It's a good little thing that people can share around subversively. Be like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, I can't believe they did this. But then we're also trying to, do a television show about something very important about the legal system, and it's like True Detective season one. So that's probably going to be my next thing. And there's no problem in doing both. You can do
Yeah.
something that is like a sketch for your friends. Like any artist, they call it a sketch because it's like a painting. It's like it's not a full oil painting. It's like, oh, I'm going to do this with charcoal and it'll be a fun little thing. It's like that's why we have this kind of other artist genre of painting that we use for these things. I think you're fine, and I think oftentimes when I talk to big famous filmmakers who are my absolute idols, most of which have seen the new short film, very luckily, they're like, yeah, it doesn't fucking matter. Those who know don't care, and those who
Yeah.
care don't know.
I want to get a little technical now.
Yeah.
You're obviously a big fan of good cinematography, as I am myself. When you're writing your shorts and stuff, how visual are you? How much are you thinking about how I want this thing to look? And when you start to work with a DP and like framing that out, like you had mentioned Parasite in a DM to me, like is that early on in those conversations when you're starting to get into this? It's like, well, what if when I get home it starts to look like Parasite, in this short? Is that something you're thinking about or does that sort of come organically with the team that you're working with?
It really depends. So, like, a lot of it is very well thought out. I'll have long talks with my cinematographers before we shoot. A lot of it is very forensically made because of the size of our budgets are very small and our schedules are very short. We've never had a whole lot of time or a whole lot of money to make stuff, so we have to forensically plan things out. I don't do storyboards. I'll do photo boards. So, like, I'll bring an iPhone to the location or like
Mm,
shoot it in a spot that's similar, and I'll stand in and do pictures and stuff. And that's been helpful. So we do that in like a Google sheet, and then we kind of like have a printout of those shots, and then throughout the day I'm crossing those out. I'm like, okay, we got those. Um, so yeah, it is very meticulous in how we do things. I often talk to my cinematographer as if they are an executor of the vision rather than like necessarily a full collaboration, unfortunately. I've done that once or twice before with the cinematographer, and I just haven't been really wowed by the results. I feel like it's much better. I started in cinematography and
yeah.
editing, and so
Yeah.
I can sometimes tap in and help out in those departments to everyone's chagrin. And then, so yeah, no, everything is very well thought out beforehand. That Parasite shot of me coming home was also just a product of like the physics of that location of like, oh, there's a lamp right there. If I'm walking up here, maybe it'd be nice if we introduce the boyfriend turning on the light for him as this kind of save the cat of like, oh, what a lovely guy. Already we like him. He's like considerate of this guy who's had a
Yeah.
tough day. And so we like comped it so the light looks like it comes on in that moment, even though that light didn't work that way. Um, yeah, but yeah, like all of that is built into the DNA of the writing of like, how do we weave the roller coaster for the audience cinematically to have their attention? I consider that part of the writing process. I think another thing that's challenging, that's like a hurdle that a lot of particularly film students and post grad film people do is like they try to make it look clean and commercial, and
Mm,
they're encouraged to do so by every department because those department heads want to have the thing look like that so they can get commercial work. So it's like a really challenging thing to make something not look like a Judd Apatow movie where it's
yeah.
like very bright and like clean and all of that stuff. Nothing against Judd,
No.
but really, like all it takes is making something. or like going to a big film festival and seeing how harsh and realistic some of the imagery is in some of these shorts, but the sound design is incredible and the
Yeah.
editing is incredible and the craftsmanship of wielding the audience's attention through sight and sound is incredible. And like that's the only thing that really matters. If you can like match the color correction between the angles, it's okay if it looks like shit sometimes if
Yeah.
the content is good. That all comes down to an educational issue of like young people seeing stuff on YouTube that does well and thinking that that is what makes a good movie rather than what makes their movie best. Like
Mhm.
speaking the language of film on their own, learning how they speak the language. It's very important. I've been very lucky. I was a producer for many years and worked with a lot of directors and saw how they worked and just saw shortcomings and missed opportunities. And so when I got to direct something on my own, I was like, I'm gonna bury these fuckers in the ground. I'm gonna make something so good. I was so petty and
Yeah.
ambitious. Still am. But yeah, that was like the foundation of my career. It was like seeing all of these missed opportunities at smaller film festivals that we got to go to, and thinking I never want to do that.
I've been privileged to be on some bigger sets too for TV shows and movies and whatnot, doing behind the scenes and even just social stuff that I got brought on as like an influencer and whatnot. And I often find myself not learning what needs to be done, but like you just said, it's like I never want to do that. I don't need these 7 people standing around doing absolutely nothing.
Waste. There is
So
so
much
much
waste.
waste.
So much waste, and it's so frustrating because I'm hungry to get 3 4 friends to help me with something. And then you go on one of these sets and it's like 60% of the crew doesn't seem to be. And look, I love that that system works and there's jobs and all that stuff is fantastic. But as an indie filmmaker, when you come up with producers who then start to say, well, you're gonna need $1 million for this script, and in your head you're going, but I have everything. What are you talking about? Like I have all the equipment. I have the friends that want to do it. I have my grandmother's house that I can shoot this in and that kind of stuff. And then that legacy thinking kicks in because they're like, but yeah, we need a trailer outside for Crafty and Video Village. And you're like, no, 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 no. This isn't how we're doing this. Like, is there like that push is something I find very difficult in the industry of trying to work with bigger studios and companies because maybe you want that distribution or you want that name attached to it. But the stress that gets put onto you to utilize all of that, I often think that's why some things turn out bad. It's just the system got kicked into it, right? I don't know if you feel that same way too. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, dude, it's all bad ideas that then the other thing is it's all money and incentive of like a giant company can't come on to make a $200,000 movie or a $50,000 movie because they make their money from commissions of being producers on the thing. Like
yeah,
they end up, taking 15-20% of whatever the budget is and they have no interest in making something that you can make at your grandmother's house. They need it to be $1 million, and so they'll tell you that in order for them to make any money. It's
yeah,
like and also there's this strange power dynamic and hierarchy where if you're able to do it on your own, you become the competition and not the subordinate. And I think YouTube is changing all of that. Of
hmm
like, you can get a better product as a YouTuber because you're constantly making stuff. You know how these things are done. If you just get your friends together over 15 days, 14 days, and you're like, yeah, I want to make a feature at my grandma's house, you immediately put those people out of business because they cost too much money. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know. I think the industry is changing toward that of like getting rid of those bad, clumsy, wasteful ideas because I get made fun of for making this short film and putting it on Twitter a couple of days ago, and I walked outside and there's a billboard for the new Marvel movie, and there's a number on it of how you can rent the billboard, and I called them to see how much it costs just for 2 weeks, and
yeah,
it's $40,000, and that's twice the budget of
yeah,
the short film that I put
yeah.
out for that one billboard, and it's like it's crazy to me. It's crazy
Yeah.
to me that people are like, oh my god, your short film. I'm so offended. It's really Daryl. You shouldn't really be taking down all this this cape stuff. I get it. Really smart, Jim. It's like, just give me a fucking break. This is a multi-billion-dollar
Yeah,
corporation.
yeah.
Anyway,
And
anyway.
that's interesting too on the self distribution side too, because I've done some things where I'm just like, I'm just gonna put this on X, I'm just gonna put this on Twitter, and that's the audience for it, and maybe that's where it's supposed to live. You know what I mean? Maybe it wasn't meant for festivals, maybe it wasn't meant for the big screen or a streamer. And I love, obviously I love using social media and I love having YouTube and all that kind of stuff. And like I don't ever put it like, obviously you want your movies in a theater and you want that cinematic experience and you want your movie on the billboard and stuff like that. That definitely falls into my head. But I've come to realize how much I actually enjoy even making stuff that's specifically sort of meant for the internet. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of meant like I just want this to be on YouTube. Like I'm working on a feature right now that I'm like almost 100% sure I'm just going to drop on the channel. Again, what's wrong with that? Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to put it, and like, I don't want to put it in festivals. I don't want to do anything. I just want it to be, here's what you can do. You can put a movie on YouTube. I'm not the first person to do it, but I've built a channel talking about movies. So, what's the next logical kind of step for me? And what I want to do is like, well, why can't I just drop a movie on YouTube? Why not? I have my own distribution. There's no one that can tell me otherwise. And if it gets 10,000 views, who cares?
Yeah, dude, it's very easy to feel like you're crazy or to be gaslit by
Yeah.
the powers that be in the film world, but all you have to do is look at the music industry for the last 50 years, and it's like, imagine that. Imagine somebody, a rapper right now going, "I'm just gonna put it on SoundCloud."
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be crazy. It's just like, yeah, dude, of course you
Of
fucking should. Or
course
like,
you will. What are you talking
I'm gonna
about?
start my own label. I don't
Yeah.
know if anybody's ever done that before.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like fucking Shady Records, motherfucker. Like you can do whatever you want. And like
Yeah.
that's the power. That is the control of like you are so we as young people, we are so distracted and have we see the dangling carrot of this industry that someone's gonna come along and it's gonna be helpful to us or that we're gonna get more eyeballs. You get far more fucking eyeballs posting it on your own channel. It's crazy. And you get
Yeah.
no notes. It's great. It's a
Yeah.
much cleaner way to make artwork.